Hello everyone, I think I am finished with my test board. I've done everything I could think of to make it easy to test different components, and I am satisfied with the way it has turned out. There's been a couple of things I've done since the last video I made. The biggest thing was I installed some ZIF connections on the CPU and the PPU sockets, and that allows me to quickly change out an IC if I need to without having to put too much strain on the chips themselves, because one of the problems I was having was when I would constantly pull different chips out of the sockets and reinsert them, they would eventually start going bad. The pins on the sockets themselves would actually break, and especially with the PPU, that was causing a problem, because when I would have one of the pins on the socket not making a good connection, it would cause some graphical glitches, and I was confusing it with the U4, the RAM chip, being the problem with that. And it was really just a bad connection from the pins getting bent. So this is a much better way of doing these tests when you have to change out the chips constantly. And those are the two that I'm really most interested in testing, because I would say between these and the RAM chips, those are probably the ones that I've noticed that go bad the most. And these are fairly cheap to replace and readily available. These are much harder to find, so that's why I installed the sockets there. Another thing I did was I went ahead and added a third row of sockets on the U4 chip. Let's see if I can pull it out with one hand for this video. So if you have looked at some of the boards, they'll have one line of pin connections just with solder in them, and that's because depending on, I guess, maybe where it was manufactured, they're going to either use the fat chips like this one, but sometimes you'll find the skinny ones, and they're the same chip. They just see if I can get this in with one hand. They're the same chip, they just come in different form factors. I have to use my right hand to get that one in there. When you buy these chips new, they're sometimes pins are a little spread out, so they don't want to go in very easily. But you can actually use them both if you solder in another connection. So I put that in there on the U4, because if you have a bad U4 chip and everything else is good, the game will actually still, most of the time I think, it'll still boot up. It'll just have a lot of graphical problems. So that way I'll know what the cause is. So besides that and the ZIF connections put in on there, I also soldered in a resistor between pin 3 and pin 9, I believe, on the connection there. And what that did was allow me to hear I think it's the VRC6 audio, and maybe some other ones that the Famicom used. So that way, if I'm using the EverDrive on this and playing a game that supports that, I can make sure that that's working with with everything. Because I've had some weird things happen with the CPU where at first glance it looks like everything's right, but there might be something wrong with the sound. Probably the weirdest one I had was I thought everything was booting up, and then controller 2 was not working right. Like, you would hit one button, I think I was hitting select, and it would like trigger a whole bunch of other buttons, and nothing else seemed to work. And I couldn't figure out what it was, and it ended up being the CPU that was bad. and that kind of took me a little while to find that out. So that's why I make sure to do a thorough test when I'm testing those chips now, because if you just boot it up and it starts, it doesn't necessarily mean that the CPU is good. There could be something else that's going wrong with it, so it's good to do a full test on there. So that's about it. I think I can call this one done. One thing I am going to do, I've been wanting to make a video, probably going to make it in the next week or so, so stand by for that. But I wanted to do a video where I'm comparing these different replacement ICs that I found mostly through vendors in China, and they're basically generic replacements for the CPU and the PPU. And I wanted to make a video that compares the differences, because you can get them a lot cheaper than the original ones. And some of them really aren't that bad. Some of them are really bad, especially on the sound department. But I found a good combination that's pretty damn close to the original. So I'm going to make a video pretty soon with that. So definitely be sure to keep an eye out for that. Well, that's about it. So thanks for watching. If you have any comments or questions, make sure to leave them below, and be sure to like the video if you enjoyed it.